Says live, baby.
It says live. What does that mean?
I don't
Oh yeah, it
know.
does say that.
That means we're on. Welcome.
Noobs.
Another edition of a podcast, but in visual form, so you can see us and hear us, hitting all your senses. Right now, you're seeing us, you're hearing us. Chris is about to give you an over the sweatshirt tug job.
Please tell me there's a huge spot cut out for that.
Well, for some of us, a huge one. For some of us, a small spot. But,
Hey, I appreciated it. I mean, I don't get too many of those, you know. That photo was from college, so that was back in the heyday.
all right, so we're happy to have another round of this. 25% of the way through the season, so lots to cover. We're going to start talking about some not NFL news, but some of the changes this next couple of weeks are going to have, and then we're going to dive into some matchups and give you who we think is going to win and why. And we've got some numbers too. So Chris and James, sorry. I didn't mention it, but if you have a question on rank or numbers, I might have it here. So ask if you're rattling things off, and I
I'll
might
be
be able to
doing
help.
nothing but asking questions, I think.
Perfect. James, why don't you go ahead and start? Talk to us a little bit about some of the suspensions and injuries we're seeing lately.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of interesting, especially this year, with what we've seen, because normally by like week 4 in the NFL and fantasy and stuff, you usually have an idea like who's a good team, who's maybe struggling or needs to make some changes, and I feel like we don't really know that quite yet, and at least in fantasy, because with guys like Tommy being out, he's had huge ripple effects on guys like Gronkowski and Edelman, and the running back situation in New England. Like all of a sudden, that looks great to have a running back in New England. And then you've got Le'Veon Bell coming back. So Dennis has been riding with D'Angelo Williams, and now doesn't have that luxury anymore because Lev Bell's going to be back and affecting, that backfield. Obviously, he's the guy. So a lot of changes are coming down the pipeline here, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see kind of how that all shapes up in the next few weeks, because I think we haven't really seen teams at their full strengths or full potentials yet.
Totally agree. And I think the Brady one's really the interesting one too. Like you mentioned, getting a lot of production from LeGarrette Blount, and like, is that what the Patriots offense is going to look like once Brady's back? It's, it's hard to tell. And you get guys like, poor Bryson starting, Gronkowski last week and getting a freaking goose egg. That's tough stuff.
Which was a good move. That was a good move, actually.
It was a great move. So it's good to. It'll be really interesting. I think for me, Gordon's the big one. Last week I had a 0 from Benjamin, and I had 2 points from Brandon Marshall on my bench, and like my wide receiver core was just struggling. So it'll be interesting to see what Gordon does to my team if he starts putting up numbers. And obviously, when I drafted him, quarterback situation looked a little different. But if we can get what's his face back from his shoulder injury in Cleveland, that could help, and it'll be interesting to see what that does, for the team. And then you mentioned Ronnie too. I think with Bell, that's huge. Like,
yeah,
Ronnie's goal was to get 1 win in the first 3 games, and he's got 2. So I mean, and now he's got the best running back in the game coming back. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely a big boost. Then you got, still I think the biggest guy coming back from injury that hasn't come back yet is Jamal Charles, who I don't know if he comes back this week. Their bye week is next week, so they'll probably wait to really let him loose until after that. But how does that affect stuff? I don't know that it really affects too many teams besides me and maybe like guys who have Macklin. Maybe he gets a few less looks, but I don't know that it really affects anybody but whoever has invested in the Chiefs backfield. So,
right. Totally.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anybody else that's coming back still. Like we had Gurley last year who was kind of ramping up. So,
we'll talk about
it's going to be interesting here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I definitely think, just speaking for me in particular too, I think I've been the beneficiary of some of the randomness and craziness that's been the first couple of weeks. But there's no question, like I think we're going to start to see things level out. You're going to start to see your regulars get in production, more to what you expected when you draft them. Guys like ODB, you'll see a little bit, getting more normalized, I would say. Exciting. We're 25% of the way through. Quarter done. Yep. All right. Well, you guys want to jump into matchups?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
I was hoping one of you guys would say no, and then we would just stop it here.
I mean, we can keep bitching about injuries and stuff, but I feel like we do that enough during the week, anyways.
This is true.
Can I get a break? Come on.
Oh, I got vultured again. Oh, too many vultures. Yeah. There's always something.
Oh, man. Wow.
All right,
Wow.
James, why don't you kick us off? Let's look at the matchup of Chris and Chris, Awadalla and Bergeron. What are your thoughts?
Chris and Chris, yeah. There can only be one. Chris Highlander. So I think this one's going to be pretty interesting. I think Chris Awadalla, especially not, never being in an IDP league before, has had to sort of get up to speed quickly with that, like how to make adjustments defensively when you need to, and who to play, like who are going to be the guys that get you points each week. And I think he's learning that and made those adjustments actually. And so I think that weak spot on his team is going to be fixed a little bit. I think his backfield, the tough thing with him is he invested in the Seattle backfield, and that's been a question mark really since before the draft or before week one. So, it's tough to really get a pulse on that until you have a few weeks of information and things happen. And, now we've had that with an injury to Rawls, so that, that's kind of solidified that there. But, Michael not in the lineup last week, and that comes back to bite you real bad. So, I think his backfield is good as long as he trusts it, whatever it is that he's putting out there each week. So, and then on the receiver front, he's got a lot of big play guys, so boom and bust guys. Benjamin is a big one. Antonio Brown's obviously the solid guy there, so you can bank on him being great. He's not a matchup problem or anything like that. So, you've got those big play ability guys. So I actually like him coming out on top this week against Chris Bergeron. I think Gurley at Arizona this week, with what LaShawn did to them last week, could be crazy. And maybe Blunt, LeGarrette Blunt against the Bills, they might feed him the ball 30 times. I don't know. You might have one more week of that, but outside of that, I don't know if your receivers and tight ends can reproduce the production that they had last week to, the multiple TD stuff. You can't count on that every week. So I think you take a quick step back, and I think Chris's team, Chris Awadalla's team, has a strong week this week and pulls it off.
Okay. I'm going to go the opposite. On who's going to win this one. I think Bergeron's going to win this. I said last week that I like his team. I think I like parts of his team, and I think that he needs to make some. I'm still kind of going back to that Gurley benching call. I think that was interesting, but I think right now, he's faced the hardest schedule in the league. Okay, but his running back crew is killing it, and that's even with Gurley not putting up the production that he is expecting. Right now, he's ranked number 2 in running backs because Forte's been a monster. So is LeGarrette Blunt. So I think he rides that one more week. I think we might even see something like 70, maybe 75, 80 points from his running back squad, which could be enough to push him over the edge. But then, back to your point, what does that mean the rest of the season? With Blunt not being the 20-point dominant force he's been. What Chris needs help with is defense. His defense is, too often we miss that key element to the game. He's averaging 19 points on defense. Divided by 4 people, that's 5 points a game, less than that per person, which is dead last in the league. And that's something that needs to improve badly. We talked about moves he needs to make. If there's someone he can trade for to get a big name guy, or check the wire and waste some acquisition time on some linebackers and defensive ends that can get you some points each week, that's going to be important. For Awadalla, I think the awakening of Christian Michael is going to be helpful for him. He invested a lot. We talked about that into the Seahawks offense, but things normalized, things stabilized. The beginning of the season is kind of haywire, and the Rawls injury, while it hurts based on like draft position and where you got him and spent money on him, I think the fact that you invested in Christian Michael is big, and he is a decent running back that can do you well. The thing I noticed with Chris's team is I feel like I'm winking a lot. It's just light. It's like right there. Sorry, I'm not winking. But I think Hey. I think the thing with Awadalla's team, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, is the way, the bench points he has. He has a ton of bench points. Third in the league right now, triple digits most weeks. And part of it for him, like where some teams, it seems like, oh, you clearly didn't get the right guys in. I feel like with him, it's a little bit of both. Like last week, you couldn't start Christian Mike. I mean, a few people did, but and then he goes off. So I think he's got a little hit or miss there. And he's got to be disappointed in Cobb right now. That's watching the Rodgers put his offense together and Cobb getting no action in that. That's disheartening for sure. So I have Bergeron winning this one. But it will be closer than it will be a close game, I think. Which sucks
it's
for
projected
Bergeron
to be pretty close. So I think it'll be, it's going to come down to if Awadalla gets the big plays that he's looking for from his receivers, and that's probably going to make or break it. So
yep, definitely. All right, let's move on to the next one. Glenn and myself. Chris, what are your thoughts on that one?
Oh, man, put me on the spot here. Something that I'm not really good at, so everybody bear with me. Judging other people's teams. I feel like,
man. I want you to be as mean as you possibly can.
I could be if
teams.
I paid so close attention to my own teams that.
But that's why this is good. That's what.
Yeah.
And first of all, no one's put you on the spot. You knew who you were getting. You knew who you were talking about.
Yeah, well, I was in that class.
Yeah,
So we got what, Glenn and let me pull up this here.
David is the other player.
Oh, David. Oh my goodness. Well, David, you have some stats on yourself. James.
You can just turn it over to me to talk about me.
I'm not asking you to. I know you have stats on yourself. James, do you have some stats on David as well? Are you going to talk about David when I
you want me to go first? I can go first.
Yeah, I'd like for you to.
Okay, I can do that. So I think this matchup is the matchup of the week. If we were to to highlight one of them, I think this is the most interesting one for this week, and I think it's going to might be the highest scoring for the two teams. Like I think this is going to be a firefight, if you will. So I'm pretty excited about it, actually. Glenn's team, he finally got some life out of Allen Robinson last week, which I think is great. They got to go to him in the red zone. If it's not Julius Thomas or Allen Robinson, they're just not going to score points. So, that was really good to see. His backfield has been solid with Latavius and Lamar Miller. Even though Lamar Miller, it seems like he's underproducing right now, but for fantasy points, he's still, what's he averaging, Dave? Do you have that right there? Like high teens?
Sorry, what was the question?
What's Lamar Miller averaging right now? Points?
Roughly,
high teens?
Yeah, high teens. He's lowest
so
is 16.
It seems like he hasn't
19.
Seems like he hasn't done very much yet, and that's still decent production out of a running back.
Well, and I was going to say he's consistent like a
Yeah.
lot of these players, there's not a huge lack of production. There's production in a lot of those key positions, and it's steady throughout the last 3 games.
Yeah, so if Glenn's actually going to roll with Pryor and let him see what he can do with all the touches that he's getting there, that's going to be kind of interesting. Olsen's going to have his big games and be pretty consistent. And Crabtree is like the ageless wonder right now. I loved him last year, and he's still kind of on that same wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 level that he was last year. So that's good to see, and that's kind of what you want from him, what you expect from him, anyways. And Glenn's defense is solid. He had a defensive touchdown last week, so he's got a defense full of guys that are always around the ball with those opportunities. So I think that's big. His kicker is gonna.
Let's talk about the better team. We don't care about.
I want to talk about his kicker though. His kicker. No, I'm just kidding. And then Tags. Okay, so Tags team is okay. So here's the thing with Tags. Like Julio, I think the big thing is Julio's obviously not 100% healthy. So something's going on there. He's still going to get the looks, but they went a little bit away from him last week because they were running clock and feeding Coleman and Freeman, and didn't really need to get the ball to Julio to make those plays. But so I think that that's kind of a problem. Kelvin Benjamin this week is going to be like whatever that goose thing is, like foie gras. Like he's going to be force fed the ball by Cam like all day, because he had 0 catches, 0 yards, and Cam has already come out and said like that can't ever happen again. So I think you're going to see Kelvin Benjamin get something like 10 to 15 targets, kind of crazy day for him potentially if he catches the ball. And then, I mean, you got to be just licking your lips with Melvin Gordon's matchup this week. Don't like literally do that. That's pretty gross, dude. But
what about Drew Brees, James? Like, I mean, this guy's got to keep putting up so many points because of that defense. Now he's going to make some mistakes along the way. I mean, I don't know how many interceptions he has.
He's going to throw the ball 40, 50,
I mean,
a lot of times a game. But this week in particular, Breeze is probably going to have a pretty good game again, but I think Rivers is going to have just as good a game. So I kind of think those guys are a wash this week. So getting down to my prediction, I've got Glenn pulling this one out, beating Tags. I think he's got a few more favorable matchups. And again, it kind of depends on who Dave plays in his flex spot. I don't know who that's going to be, so maybe that'll tip the scales one way or the other. But looking at it right now, I think Glenn, with his receivers and strong backfield, pulls it out, and defense.
I think the only thing Glenn's going to be pulling out is his dick when he's wearing a dress at breakfast next year at the draft.
Remind us of this bet, Dave, so that's front and center here.
It's easy. Well, it doesn't matter what the terms are. Glenn's going to wear a dress at the draft next year. Well, not at the draft, at breakfast at the draft, and I get to pick the dress. So, no, it is whoever has the best season, stack ranked at the end of the year. So, not including playoffs. So, end of regular season. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Chris,
that's all right. Let me just throw out my prediction here. So, Dave, I'm going to throw you the nod. I think we're going to start seeing – hey, I have to, man. Have to. No, but I think – so Dave's been struggling with Brandon Marshall, and I don't know if he's going to keep him in here or not, but I think we're going to see him turn around a little bit. I know we saw a lot of interceptions, and, man, the fall of the quarterback in New York.
Magic.
God. That was a complete turnaround. I'm sure you wish that showed up against the Bills, Dave.
That would have been nice.
It's crazy, but I don't I mean, he can produce, and I think he's going to throw to Marshall a lot. So I think he's going to give you the edge. I think Marshall's going to give you the edge here that you've been waiting for.
You're saying Dave is going to win because Brandon Marshall is going to light up the Seahawks? That's what you're saying?
I am.
Okay. All right.
You heard it here.
I think Dave's trade this week might have more of an impact than Brandon Marshall will.
What are your thoughts on the trade?
Well, I just for this week at least, I think it's great for you because if you saw what Kelsey did last week against the Jets, I mean Jimmy Graham can do all that if they split him out wide like that or run him down the middle of the field. So I think it could be a really nice matchup if they use him. But with Seattle, you never know. Like sometimes they get pissed at him for not blocking and just don't throw him the ball. So. I don't know, but overall, it's probably a good trade for you. You needed some help there and in that position. And Matt Jones, maybe he blows up and becomes the 1 week Matt Jones of what it was that 2 years ago when he blew up and had that 200-yard game. But right now, he's just kind of giving you like blah numbers in, not pivotal moments. Like he's not getting the ball when it matters. So. Right. I don't think they trust him, so why should you?
Yep, pretty much. I mean, I think it helps. We'll wait for the trade from Ronnie. But I think, obviously Dennis has made it clear he needs a running back. Anything higher, and I wasn't really interested in. The only thing I wanted from him was Mike Evans, and that was going to cost too much. And I didn't want to pay that much. So this was a little bit more my scale for what I was looking for. I'm 8th in tight end, so it helps me there. But that's enough on me. Sorry to take all the attention away. What's our next matchup? Jeremy and James. All right, I'm up. So I get to keep talking at least. Good. James and Jeremy. James, you need Luck to step up. You paid for him, and you need the production out of him. I had Luck last year, and I kept seeing this like first quarter, 3 for 8 and a pick, and then he would turn it up in the second half or second quarter. And the expectation this year, them going with their 3 wide receiver set, was that we were going to see that turn up from start to finish. And obviously we haven't been seeing it as much. He had a great week 1 in that comeback and coming in and getting those extra points, but he needs to put up more for you. Your running backs looked a little rough at first. You are currently 6th, but you would have, honestly, aside from last week when you got 61 points, that was huge. So Atlanta make that look great with Coleman. Definitely a good timeshare. And I think wide receivers, you're currently ranked 3rd, and I think Sterling Shepard's going to be a huge boost for you. And starting to see him coming into his own a little bit in New York as a rookie. So that's exciting. I think that we should also just talk about your team in general. 2 weeks over 193 points. That's impressive. And we talked about this before we started recording, but the 1 week you didn't have 190, you had 100 points on your bench, and every other week you've had around 40 or 50. So I think you have what it takes right now. Your defense is number 1. Your tight ends and wide receivers are great. You're middle of the road for quarterbacks and running backs. So you squeaked by. That matchup was nuts. That Monday night game, we didn't talk much about that, but between your guys' matchup and mine and Kyle's, yours obviously having that 0.1 variance for like the last 5 minutes of the game, just nail biter. Good, crazy stuff.
That was the worst thing I've ever experienced. I guess it could have been worse if I was Chris, but he and I were texting during that.
I was texting the updates to you. You weren't even watching.
Well, I was watching, but it was on Gamecast. I was watching Gamecast, so I was delayed because I don't have cable, so I can't watch Monday night.
I would text shit, and he would be like, "What happened?"
Yeah. So he was like, "Who was your guy, Robertson?" Yeah, he's like, "Robertson is literally tackling Coleman." So like
after Coleman's getting like 100 yards.
Nice.
So that was pretty fun. That was good. And then obviously you and Kyle with Kyle's bad choice in running backs that don't score touchdowns. Maybe you should think about that.
There was a moment in the
that
fourth
was pretty
quarter.
funny.
There was a moment in the fourth quarter with like 3 minutes left or something, and Breeze threw that pick that got reversed, and that was to the linebacker that Kyle had started. That was it.
I saw the score change, and I was like, oh, it's over. And then I guess they reviewed it. Yeah.
Yeah, they reviewed it. The ball hit the ground, but that was like a 7.5 point swing on that pick. So back to the matchup at hand. Jeremy's team. I've already kind of made my case that I don't think Jeremy's team is that hot. His numbers don't look great, and he's 8th in team points right now. Des Bryant is looking just not liking that at all. Forgive me, I'm not on his team right now. Let me jump to it real quick.
Dave, while you're doing that, I know you want to talk about Carson, but so David Johnson is somebody I had toward the end of last season, and there was a point in time before the draft where I really wanted to pick him first, and in hindsight, damn. I wish
he's amazing.
He is so money already, and he's just picking up basically where he left off. I know there's a lot of gaps on Jeremy's team, but the guys that are, like David Johnson, I think Carson had kind of a fluke week last week. I think he's going to kill it against LA. But he's got some big names. I feel like whenever you're in that position, though, where you have a few big players, it's really hard to trade because, how is he going to get a big name off of somebody else's team?
Well, if you have a big name like a David Johnson or whoever it is, like a first-round type guy, you just have to you get more players. So you get, a couple of slightly lower tier guys for your elite guy. And Jeremy's not afraid to do that if he needs to, and if the package is right. Like he dealt Julio last year, so he's not afraid to do it. It's got to make sense. And I don't know that there are too many teams out there that are willing or able to put a package together to get David Johnson.
What do you think he would do if someone were to say offer him?
No. Let's not play that game.
No,
but it's a funny game.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I think James's team is going to do one of two things. It's either going to bunk and do the 130 performance, and he'll just see this roller coaster play out, or we're going to start to see a trend, and that's what I'm voting on. I think James's team is going to shine again, and we see him getting maybe not in the 190s this week. I don't see what you're projected at. Not that that's the Bible or anything, but I don't know if you'll be at 190, but you'll definitely be above Jeremy. So I got you winning this one. What do you think, Chris?
I got James. James, that was a crazy game. That's going to leave a bad taste in my mouth probably the rest of the season. But is he number one right now?
No.
Who's number one, dude?
Dennis is our number one.
1.1 more points than me.
Right, and that's. I've played both of those teams, and I had really good production during both of those games. So I don't know, man. There's just too much consistency with James and putting up a lot of points. Jeremy would have to have a very different game this week than he's had so far this season to pull this one off. So I'm going James.
And to be honest, every time I talk good about James's team, it's kind of where I think the Taggarty got started. And Jeremy did pay me $20 to say you were going to do well.
So, that sucks.
All right, let's move on. What's the next? Kyle and Ron. Oh, I am leading this one again. So Kyle and Ronnie, these guys are interesting. I like looking at just some of the point scoring dynamics here. Both of these guys, Ronnie's calling me right now. No, Ronnie.
Don't pick it up.
No.
He knows we're doing this.
He knows we're doing this.
Joining us.
Yeah, you could join the freaking podcast, Ronnie. Let me text him. Maybe he can jump in.
All right.
Who was going to talk about just the other?
It's me and you and me.
All right, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, okay. These are two interesting teams. With Ronnie really pulling off.
Hold on.
Wow.
I know. Sorry, I lost my freaking camera, and now there I am. Okay, they made me it up. Sorry.
So with Ronnie pulling off the miracle 2 wins in these first 3 weeks here without Lev Bell, it's kind of interesting because he's 2-1, but he really hasn't scored that many points, and he's played I think the second weakest schedule in the league. So he had that one squeaker win where he beat Chris Awadalla. So that helps, and that happens, and that's fine. But with Kyle's team, Kyle's running backs have been getting, Ezekiel Elliott has been getting vultured for sure. With Devontae Freeman, you can't say that as much though, because it is, and from the beginning of the season, they've always said this is a shared backfield. Like with Coleman in there, he's a bigger guy. They're going to give him the ball in the goal line, and they're going to share touches throughout the game no matter what. So, that's a shared backfield, and that's always a risk you run. Like Freeman could very easily this week have a week where he scores 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns or whatever. So, after your stud running backs that you have, Kyle, you kind of have this mix of like a lot of mid-tier guys, which is like you have a stockpile of talent, but I think it makes it hard for you to make decisions on who to play each week, and you can guess wrong or get it wrong pretty easily. So, I think that's kind of tough. But your running backs, like you have the best running back stable in the league for sure. So that really helps you kind of have a base to work off of. I think Big Ben bounces back this week. I'm not sure if Philly's defense is for real or not, but Dave, what's going on there?
Ladies and gentlemen, we have our first caller live to the podcast. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, am I on the air?
Yeah.
Hey,
what's your question, bud?
First time, long time. Just want to say
welcome to the show.
Great job. Love listening to your weekly podcast. And I had a question.
Yeah, what's that?
What are your guys' thoughts on Dennis completely offloading his team like teams in the past do? Do you think this is a good thing? Or do you think he is high on the drug of trading and he went a little bit too far this time?
Well, it's a fair question, caller. Yeah. And first, let me answer the first question. I had you guys muted while I answered the caller's original question. And yes, that is a growth that is related to an STD. I will get that checked out. But yeah, what do you guys think of the caller's second question about Dennis just unloading his team?
Well, it's a really good question, and I think we would normally have the perfect guy to answer that because we have a trade expert in our league, and he just wasn't available tonight to join us. So I'll maybe if you hang on after we're done with this, we can get your information and put you guys in touch. But I'm not sure why. Dennis definitely needed to shore up his backfield because he had like one running back. I don't know that he needed to make some of the moves that he was making. Maybe he just wanted to diversify with getting rid of Fat Eddie and picking up some other guys. But I'm not really sure what he's thinking. I don't think he's made great moves so far with those with the 2 trades today, but maybe he just wants as many running backs as possible. I don't know. Because what did he get? He got Matt Jones, Duke Johnson, and TJ Yeldon. Is that right?
Caller, are you still with us?
Yep. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
And he gave up Tajay Sharp and Jimmy Graham.
Yep.
Yep.
And Eddie Lacy. So, I don't know.
What do you think his thought was behind that?
That the Packers suck?
Except for Aaron Rodgers, right?
No, I think except for Jordy.
Caller, let's be honest, he was drunk.
Yeah, it was. It was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. For our first caller, this is lackluster at best.
Yeah, caller, I got to say, a little disappointed right now.
I don't like being live like this, so I was really nervous.
When you call into a fucking radio show, what do you think is going to happen?
I didn't think I'd get on. I've been on hold for fucking 30 minutes.
We said the 18th caller would get on.
All right. Well, thanks for taking my call. And can't wait to call back and
Yep.
have another boring question next week.
Oh, do you want to hear the rest of my prediction for this week?
It's about somebody named Ron.
Go ahead, James. What do you got?
Okay.
Still live?
You're still alive. Just shut up and let James talk.
So here's about I talked about Kyle's team. With Ronnie's team, he's getting Le'Veon Bell back this week. Obviously, that's a huge boost. But he's got Eli Manning is the only quarterback he can plug in this week against Minnesota. That's an awful matchup. And then he's got, if he's going to play A.J. Green and Gio Thursday night against Miami, that sucks. So even though I like Ron's team probably in the long run a little bit better than Kyle's, I think Kyle pulls this one out this week.
James, let me pull it up, the matchup. I think while I'm pulling it up, I'll say the interesting thing I found in their teams is Kyle's done like a complete 180 from last year where, I did a lot of talking and actual factual about how he changed course and focused on wide receivers and made that a top priority, and he won the league because of it. Well, right now he's currently 10th in wide receivers and number one in running backs. So
right, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. He asked a good question. It'll be funny to see if the Edelman in the wide receiver slot gets him some good quarterback points. The Belichick hasn't said who yet. And Rex Ryan's pulling shenanigans, like prank calling Julian Edelman, which is perfect. Thanks, Rex. Ronnie, meanwhile, is dead last in running back points, but I think we're all in agreement that that's about to change with Le'Veon. He's dead last because he's working with Gio, and he had Jennings as well.
Jennings, yeah.
James White's not. I think James White's going to be interesting. He's not a focal point now, but I think once Brady's back, we'll start to see him more in that role he played last year, where he's a little bit more pass catching, a little more friendly like that. And Kenyon Drake, an interesting pickup, started him last week and got him like 8 points. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in Miami a little bit too, because he does have some talent. But at the end of the day, I think
Langford going down really hurts, though. I think no matter what, that hurts because Gio's not a true, at least he hasn't been really in the past week by week. He's not a true RB2. Like, he's a flex guy. So,
yeah.
Langford, he was kind of counting on being that second running back who could kind of give you, mid-tier production and keep that going. So now that he's out for at least a little while, he's got a little more work to do to figure out, how to plug it. He's just got less options for how to build a roster each week. So,
yeah. And I think looking at Kyle's team, I think Kyle's got some really good matchups, especially for his running back Zeke. DeMarco Murray could do well too. Houston didn't look that great, obviously, last week against LeGarrette. So I think Kyle might get this one. Kyle needs the win. He could have easily won last week. He's got a decent enough team, so he needs it. Ronnie, AJ Green too. You got to be a little question marky there on what you're going to do going forward. If you want to deal him for like a Josh Gordon and bend on the future, something like that.
Okay, I want to address something with your guys' podcast here.
Well, first, usually we don't take criticisms from our callers. I mean, we've got a little red button we can.
Just dump them, David. Just dump them.
Yeah. All right. First time call. What?
First ever caller.
Yeah, you've been on for 10 minutes. That's a long ass call.
Because I've been listening to you guys talk, and now I want to rebuttal this.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Let's hear it.
No, you don't get to rebuttal.
Oh no, I hung up on him. Don't worry. If he wants to,
okay, good.
During the fucking podcast. Little shit.
Nice.
I want to. Oh, he's calling back. Hold on. I'm back. All right. So that wraps up the. God damn it, Ron.
So we both have Kyle. We both have Kyle pulling this one out.
Yep. We both have Kyle pulling this one out. That leaves one matchup, and I'm trying to get to it before Ronnie calls me again. Dennis and Bryson. Oof.
Yep.
Dennis and Bryson. What do you think, James? And then Chris, you're up.
So when I heard, like, saw what the matchup was, you're like, okay, we're going to talk about Dennis and Bryson. I was like, okay, well, Bryson's going to win this one by 1,000,000 points because Dennis has nobody to plug in, basically. And then a couple of trades happened, and Dennis has like a couple of guys that he could plug in, and that's helpful. Not that helpful, but he at least has warm bodies that he can put in there. The thing is it's not that clear cut, actually. Like when you look at Bryson's matchups, and it's tough because you got to like scroll through Bryson's thing to see who he can plug in. But this week, it's not that enticing. Like, it doesn't look great. He's got some okay options with, if Gronk plays and is healthy, like that could really help, but that's another gamble. So like, you can't count on that. You're going to play Kirk Cousins against Cleveland. Who knows how that's going to go? Sanu might not play, right? Sanu's banged up. Quincy Enunwa could be good, but I mean, they're playing Seattle. That's always tough. I mean, he doesn't have any great options to plug in this week. So if ODB and Mike Evans go off again and Stafford has a big game, like, Bryson could be in trouble, especially if he scores in that 130 range again. So I still have Bryson pulling it off, but I think it's going to be closer than what I at least thought initially. Like, I thought it was just going to be a landslide, but for some reason, Bryson's team this week doesn't look that strong to me. Stronger than Dennis's shitty team, but
Well, they're both rebuilding. I mean, ironically, I mean, it's funny that they're playing each other. Dennis is kind of rebuilding with those trades, and then I'm guessing the lack of, I think you put the term plug in, he's going to plug some people in because they're empty right now, means he's rebuilding too. And I feel bad for Bryson. Last week was he the lowest scoring team?
You should never feel bad for anybody in fantasy football. And he doesn't have to like plug. He does it on purpose. He's not setting his lineup on purpose so people can't look at it because he thinks it's like strategic.
Well,
I started this a couple of years ago, and now he's taken next level for sure. But it is tough to look at it if you're playing him. It's annoying. But
last week the people,
he knows his team, so he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, the people he has that are still in right now, like they bottomed out last week, and I think that's why he resulted in that really low scoring game. A lot of people that I think he had a lot of high hopes for, they just bottomed out. So.
Well, did he have 2 zeros last week? Let me look real quick. He had Gronk put up the goose egg. And then Brashad Breeland. So,
and then a couple others.
He did get 17 from his kicker, so that always helps. But,
not quite enough, it would seem.
Yeah.
But I mean, you had some people putting up 20 and 30 points consistently the 2 weeks before, and then get single digits. I think C.J. Anderson's one of them, right? And then Fitzgerald. Hyde's doing all right, but I wouldn't have expected those two players, Anderson and Fitzgerald to get single digits in these games. But I don't know how to predict this either. I mean, I'm going Dennis, honestly. I think he can pull this out, but yeah, I mean, I think it's the same as what you're saying. It's hard to predict because I don't know what Bryson's going to put in play there.
Yeah, we should say, too, if you're going to leave your lineup the way Bryson does, there's a couple of people that leave a guy or two out. But with this many holes, it's hard to, we're not really scrolling through the bench a lot in these analysis. So make it a little easier on us. Like, you're not – I think let's ask this question. Is there a strategic edge to what Bryson is doing? What do you think?
I don't think so. You can see what's on his bench. I mean,
I can go through if I'm playing him, I know. But really, when I'm setting a lineup, I'm not looking at the other guy's team anyways. So
exactly. Exactly.
Maybe if it's like if I'm at the bottom, like we're a little bit further in the season, and I'm like towards the bottom of the standings, and I'm playing a really good team, and I'm like, okay, who's he got this week? Like, do I need to take a couple of flyers and see what I can get? I don't know, but no.
Yeah,
and that's it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Maybe it's like a superstition thing, If it works, it works. But I mean, he's 1-2, so I don't. Sorry, babe.
Yeah, sorry. No, I said it Saturday night. I get it. You make we all make adjustments and we all make changes, but I don't know what the point is. I think you said it right on. I'm not looking at someone else's team going, oh no, he's starting,
Yeah,
Gronk?
But with Bryson's team, with his team, I mean, he's one of the guys where I don't really think we know like what his team is yet because Gronk hasn't been around. So that's a centerpiece of his team, obviously. Like you need that guy. You drafted him to be the guy. And if he's not there putting up 20, 30 a week, like he's done in the past, then that puts your whole team in jeopardy. So, if he gets him back healthy, which is probably when Brady comes back, then, he can go on a little run and have some stability there. But, this week is still a question mark. So I still think he pulls it off, but, we'll see.
Do you think this is more about Bryson trying to signal to himself what prime decisions he's got to make before this week gets underway, maybe, or do you really think it is about trying to fool the other guy?
Is this him pumping himself up?
Well, not pumping himself up. I just mean
I'm gonna make a decision.
And it's like maybe he's like, "Fuck, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do with quarterback." And what
that's the thing. Like when we went to James's house for Thursday night and we were talking about it, he already knew what his lineup was going to be. Of course, barring injury or something. So he knows what it's going to be. It's not like he's toying with the decisions, and he just didn't have it in there. So, I mean, do what you want to do. No one's forcing you. But it just makes it we try to do this kind of stuff, and he was on the call, and he knows it's, you look at someone's
maybe we think that we're like our predictions don't really matter. They're fun, but
what? Shut your mouth. Is someone listening to this and not taking us seriously?
I don't know. I mean, we did get our first caller, so I guess that's a sign that you're on the up.
Yeah. And then the phones were ringing off the hook for a minute there, but then they've subsided. Probably a little upset. That's fine. I think is that a wrap? I think that's it.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I had anything else. We've just got a million more injuries going on, and that's always happening. So,
yep.
Deal with it.
Chris, you got anything else?
Hilarious, Dave. Yeah, I have a ton of things to say.
Oh, the floor is yours, sir.
No, that was a joke.
That broadcasting school is really paying off for you there, Chris.
I wasn't talent, James. There's talent and there's production.
All right. Well, this is your talent signing off.
Peace.
I'm kidding. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy. Thanks, guys.
Yep.